the life cycle of a problem for a health coach will come as follows. One, most likely the problem is going to come from a client. You'll have some issue with a client, and the client's going to say, okay, I thought you were a medical professional. One thing that's very common for me is I have clients who have two qualifications. They're a health coach and they're a nurse, or they're a health coach and there's something else. And they say, oh, but I knew that you were a nurse. I thought that what we were doing was nursing activities, and I took your advice because, like you said, it's a highly litigious society. So you need it to make it really, really clear to people, like, this is who, in the scope of our services working, this is exactly what we're doing together. This is who I am. This is what my qualifications are. This is what I will be doing. This is what I'll not be doing. Go see a medical professional. Make sure that you know, all of the things that are in there, because in the life cycle, a complaint is filed, or someone wants their money back, or someone wants to sue you. And the first question always is going to be, what do the documents say? What does the contract say between the parties? So that's why if you're using a template that's not specific to you and your practice and just drafted for thousands of people, okay, a problem comes up, someone files a complaint against you. If that's not specific to every aspect of the way your business operates, the person who's filing a complaint may have a legal advantage against you.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. Real excited to share today's guest with you. His name is Cory Sterling, and he is the founder of Conscious Counsel. And we have had some lawyers in the past jump on the show, and it's one of those interesting topics because I know the last thing you want to do as a wellness practitioner or just somebody who's really just concerned about helping others is think about lawsuits, right? It's such a different way of operating, but just a necessary way to just get your foundational things secure. It's like it's one of those things I really feel like, can you imagine just helping somebody with great intention, trying to get them the results they're looking for, and for whatever reason they try to sue you? It's the litigious society that we live in, and it's really unfortunate that we do have to have this sometimes hover over our heads, and it happens to the best of us. So Cory's going to jump on the show and just kind of make us aware of little things to look out for, and how his company really just drives immense amounts of opportunity to continuously help health coaches specifically in protecting their selves, their assets, you know, even their content creations. It's really interesting. So it's some things that I honestly never thought about, having a course, having a podcast, being on social media. There's just a lot of avenues that are opened up that can make you a person who is exposed to some type of litigation, no matter how frivolous it could be. So yeah, you're going to definitely love him and his delivery and all the wisdom that he brings, helping so many health coaches get their businesses in order and protected. So yeah, it's going to be a good show. A little bit of housekeeping as usual. Leave a rating and review on iTunes. It helps a long way in getting guests like Cory coming on the show. And also, if anybody is interested, or you know anybody who's interested, please take a look at the podcast business boosting course on my website, OmarCumberbatch.com. Take a look at it, see if anybody's interested, share far and wide, so that we can get more podcasters out there doing their thing and spreading their message. So let's jump into the show. Hey, Cory, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great, Omar. How are you, bro?
Oh, fantastic. I'm jealous that you're in a nice, warm, tropical climate right now, and I'm freezing to death over here in New York, but it's all good.
Yeah, well, I can see in through your window that it's sunny. The sun's really good. And I'm in Brazil. I'm in a kite surfing. I'm on a kite surfing trip. So I'm in a beach town called Praia. And the focus is being a lawyer for health coaches and kite surfing at sunset. And that's the program at the moment.
Wow, that's a beautiful life. I'm glad that you took the time out to talk to my audience. I know one of the things as health coaches, the legal part of things can be kind of complicated to such an extent that we don't want to have anything to do with it. But obviously, we know in a litigious society, it's very important. So yeah, I'm definitely happy for you to share all that you know about this kind of stuff. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll definitely jump into some interesting questions regarding the space.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's one of my life passions to chat about these things. So a little bit about myself. I'm a lawyer. I used to work at a big law firm. in downtown Vancouver, British Columbia. And I was miserable working, working the office job and grinding it. And I was about to quit law. I had a background in sports before. I worked in the NFL for a couple of years and traveled around the world and had different jobs working in sports. And I was about ready to quit being a lawyer. And one of my mentors said, hey man, like, why don't you just like choose the type of people who you want to work with, who you want to support, who align with you and your vision of the world and what a healthy world looks like, and see if you can do something in supporting them. And so I originally started working with yoga teachers and yoga studios as I was on my yoga path at that time, then becoming a yoga teacher. And then it was fitness studios and CrossFit. I was sort of just like whatever passion I had going on in my life is where I would turn my legal practice to. And then I got really into health coaching and, let's say, alternative ways of dealing with health. So I signed up to be a health coach with IHP. And then I just started working with all these different coaches. And exactly what you mentioned, I see so often that there's super talented, well-informed, educated, caring, loving health coaches and health professionals who really want to help people. They want to be the change that they want to see in the world. I know on your website, it mentions that you're like a recovering sugar addict, which is, that's a very real thing. And so obviously you're putting all this information out into the world because you want to help people. You learned a lot of things along the way. You want other people to be better because of it. And so for me, where I see my role is being the lawyer, working on legal agreements with these clients to advise them what they can do, what they can't do, what the limits are, areas of exposure. But most importantly, I try to take all of the stress and all the problems away from my clients. So what I tell them when they sign up working with me, it's like, you've just transferred all of your problems and concerns and worries over to me, and I'll deal with it and I'll take care of them. And you go out, and I always say to them, just like, get as many clients as you can. I'll make sure that you're covered, but just go share your gift with the world, make the world a healthier place. And it's just a pay it forward mentality where, for me, I believe that if I'm empowering health coaches to go out and build their own communities and help others, that's like my small part of being the change that I want to see in the world as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great background story. So, but why did you specifically want to work with, well, I should say, why should health coaches want to work with a lawyer as yourself specifically? Because there's a lot of different lawyers out there, and I'm sure as far as they'll take a agreement to set up, say, an LLC, or they'll do that. Why is it better to be working with someone of your stature and knowledge of just the industry itself?
Well, there's a lot of nuances to health coaching and the boundaries of what is allowed and what is not allowed, and what you can do and what you cannot do, and what you can say and what you cannot say. So I think first and foremost, I think the fact that I'm really passionate about it, and I've gone through the process of becoming health coach certified myself, is like, I understand the issues very, very well. I understand the types of services offered. I understand where the boundaries are. I think secondly, the fact that I've worked with so many health coaches in the past, one cool thing I forgot to mention, and I have a law firm that's called Conscious Counsel. And at Conscious Counsel, we just got an award as best health and fitness law firm. I forget who gave us the award, but one of our clients nominated us and we won an award. And we've got 350 5-star Google reviews. So we only have 5-star reviews, and we've got 350 of them. And I think it makes sense to work with us because I've worked with so many health coaches. I've had the same conversation over and over every time, that I already preemptively know what the legal issues are going to be for a health coach. So like, sure, you could download a contract from the agreement. You can download a contract from the internet and put in a couple of words, but I've had clients get sued or come to me once they're sued. And I've had clients who I've had to defend from a cease and desist letter. So I've done this for 6 years. I've worked with over 1,000 clients. So, and the reason why I focus on specific niches is because I would rather know a lot about very, very little than know a little bit about a lot. So it's like, if you're a yoga studio, if you're a health coach, if you're a Pilates studio, if you're a gym, like, I can tell you what issues are going to come up based on your practice and what it is that you're doing.
No, I definitely respect that. It's definitely better to be an expert in a particular position. So I guess one of the things that I had at least written up as far as the questions were concerned, Like, what do you think are the biggest mistakes that health coaches are making, as small business owners when it comes to the law?
I think the first mistake that health coaches make, and this has really nothing, I mean, it has everything to do with the law, but it has nothing to do with the law. I think it's that the industry seems, and I mean, isn't it even just weird using the word industry about it? Because it's so heart leading, right? You think about helping people and, okay, I used to have Crohn's, or I learned about this about my hormones, or whatever it is, candida or gut bacteria. And so you don't really think that there's an industry around that, but it very much is, when you're participating in commerce, it is an industry. And I think that there's a perennial underdevelopment of professionalism in the industry, right? And so the issue is that to become a health coach, okay, choose any online school, you can get a certification. There's no, in the state of New York, in the state of Florida, there's not like a health coach piece of legislation. It's created by exclusion. So if you're a nurse, a registered nurse, you're allowed to do this. If you're a registered dietitian, you're allowed to do this. If you're a medical professional, you're allowed to do this. Health coaches don't have the same. So I think the first challenge is that there seems to be, there's a lack of professionalism and understanding about what it means to run a business properly. If you look at other industries that are more established, having legal contracts is like the first thing that you'll do when you start your business. You open a business. If you're a sole prop, you'll register the business name and get a license. If you're an LLC, you'll register an operating agreement and get a business, operate with a business license. And so I think the first issue is that there's just no source of information to help people professionalize themselves in the business. Does that make sense as the first thing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because that's definitely one of the things I was going to lead into as well. I mean, I know a lot of us are concerned about the structure of our businesses, like whether we do an LLC, whether we do a corporation. It's like we get really hung up in the foundational pieces, rightfully so, because you don't want to get sued and you want to make sure you have proper protections and such. So yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense to me.
Cool. So after that, once we accept that the industry in and of itself is, let's say, generally speaking, underdeveloped according to general professional standards, I think that the next biggest issue that I see is that clients don't have the confidence to put their gift out there. And there's something holding them back because they're not sure that they're doing things properly.
Okay.
Right. It's, as I mentioned, there's no piece of legislation dealing just with health coaching or holistic coaching. It's the permissible activities are decided by exclusion. So it's like, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do this because only a registered nurse or only a naturopath or only a medical professional is allowed to do those sorts of things. So it's inherently, it's a gray and ambiguous, area of law. And so the problem is that people don't want to really put their program out there, build what they want to do because they're not sure that they can do it properly. And that always subconsciously holds them back. Like the second biggest issue I see is subconscious holding back from really putting your gift out there and growing it because there's some sense of insecurity for the health coach in terms of bringing, whether they're a first-time entrepreneur, whatever it is, whether it's taking a leap of faith to start your business, or whether it's just not being confident that you have proficiency and understanding of the laws or the rules, all of that stuff sort of holds you back. The third issue, and I'll end with this, but the third biggest issue that I see is that health coaches are not using customized specific documentation for them in their business. And I could talk about the law for a very, very long time, but I just want to hit the high notes and be as pertinent and relevant as possible in what I'm saying. When you have legal documents, they have to reflect the specific qualifications you have, the specific services that you offer, the specific risks of the services that you're providing, the specific scope of practice that you have. And in addition to all of the other things that need to be there, like, voluntary participation or getting someone to see a medical professional or understanding what you can do and what you cannot do, your documents need to reflect the specific services that you are offering. And all of the problems that I have to help clients out with who come to me, I have two types of clients. Those who proactively come to me beforehand and are like, hey, Cory, I'm starting this online community group or this online project, or I'm starting taking one-on-one clients. Can you help me draft the documents? Boom, easy, sorted. The other types of clients who I work with, if they downloaded documents that aren't specific to them in their business, someone's filed a complaint against them, someone wants to sue them, someone suffered damages, and now I'm trying to have to fix things using these broken documents or non-specific documents. So to make it as general as possible, you need legal documents that are specific to your practice, your qualifications, what you do, how you do it, where you do it, when you do it, the type of relationship that you want to have.
Yeah, now that's a lot to consider, because I know, you start out, you do have some kind of idea where you're going with certain things, and there's a lot of pivoting in entrepreneurship, right? So like you might be doing one-on-one clients one week, and then all of a sudden you're inspired to do a course the next, and there's just a lot of different variations. So do you help with those as well? And how did you become familiar with the needs of health coaches specifically, through your experience? I guess a lot of that might pertain to just, your own experiences, just having to pivot in different directions when you're trying to establish things in your business as well.
Yeah, I think, well, to answer the first part of the question, you're absolutely right that we're constantly pivoting and constantly moving in our business. So one thing we do at Conscious Counsel, and I think this is one of the reasons why we've gotten to 355-star reviews so quickly, we offer unlimited edits, revisions, and support to our clients for a period of time. So usually if a client is just starting out their business, we'll say, okay, cool, we're going to customize the documents. We're going to work with you, as many edits, revisions, time you spent, whatever it is that you want, we're with you. Plus, we'll give you a runway of 6 months where if you change something, if you need support, if you want to try something new, whatever it is that's going on, hit us up and we'll make these edits. Because exactly like you said, I understand that, especially when you're finding your groove, things are constantly changing. So one, like I've adapted the services after having done this for 6 years. I realized like, oh, what new health coaches actually need is the opportunity to pivot and the opportunity to be in their business, see what they need, and then let that evolve naturally over time. So it's definitely taken into consideration. And secondly, in terms of figuring out what the needs are, when I was a first-year lawyer, I had a school of holistic nutrition approach me and ask me to be on the faculty. So I did a course with them there, and that was sort of when and I prepared and I studied in order to really understand it. And that's how it began. But there's no better trainer to be a proficient professional than experience. And it's just so many health coaches, just like conversation. What do you do? What are the risks? And learning that way, plus seeing when issues come up, what sort of issues come up, why are they coming up? How can we have the documents proactively combat those issues that the clients don't even know exist yet?
What do you think are a few of the things that a health coach should absolutely get protected out of the gate?
Number one is the waiver of liability. So we can talk about registering an LLC and being a sole proprietorship, operating as a sole prop, or LLC, and the protection of registering a separate entity. But at the end of the day, the waiver of liability is what protects your assets. So the whole way that I want health coaches to think about the law is, before someone works with you, you have to let them know what you're doing, what the risks are, how those risks can materialize, and what happens if one of those risks materialize. So the waiver of liability, because the waiver of liability is basically the document that says, hey, before you and I work together, here's all the things we're doing with all of the different equipment in all the different modalities. And these are all the things that could go wrong. And if any of these things go wrong, you agree not to hold me legally responsible because I warned you of it before, you voluntarily participated, I explained the risk. This is why all of it needs to be specific to what it is that each health coach practice is. And so the waiver is the foundational document from my perspective, because the biggest risk obviously is like, don't get sued, right? Don't get sued is really I don't want to say the name of the game, but it's extremely important. The second issue that we see with health coaches is issues around representations and warranties and scope of practice. So those are just legal words, but basically what it means is you have to be really clear telling people what your qualifications are, what you can do, what you cannot do. Like, you can't diagnose, you can't cure, you can't treat, none of those things. And you have to let people know what the qualifications are, what you do, what you don't do, that you recommend that they seek a medical professional, all these other little things that need to be communicated, because this is the life cycle of a problem for a health coach will come as follows. One, most likely the problem is going to come from a client. You'll have some issue with a client, and the client's going to say, okay, I thought you were a medical professional. One thing that's very common for me is I have clients who have two qualifications. They're a health coach and they're a nurse, or they're a health coach and there's something else. And they say, oh, but I knew that you were a nurse. I thought that what we were doing was nursing activities, and I took your advice because, like you said, it's a highly litigious society. So you need to make it really, really clear to people, like, this is who, in the scope of our services working, this is exactly what we're doing together. This is who I am. This is what my qualifications are. This is what I'll be doing. This is what I'll not be doing. Go see a medical professional. Make sure that you all of the things that are in there, because in the life cycle, a complaint is filed, or someone wants their money back, or someone wants to sue you. And the first question always is going to be, what do the documents say? What does the contract say between the parties? So that's why if you're using a template that's not specific to you and your practice and is just drafted for thousands of people, okay, a problem comes up, someone files a complaint against you. If that's not specific to every aspect of the way your business operates, the person who's filing a complaint may have a legal advantage against you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I find it interesting because, again, like with the amount of pivoting that happens, and I openly talk about the selfish component to the show. And I get like nice advice from people like yourself, the experts in the field, about different things, but I do represent a lot of what the health coaches are doing nowadays, and they're doing things like I'm doing a course. Do we have to have documents that are like protect the course? I'm doing a podcast. Do I have to have documents that protect the podcast? We're doing this on YouTube, do I have there's so many little avenues that we can get down. Anybody can sue for anything, that's clear as day. But I'm very curious to hear your take on other items that may be common to health coaches that they may want to protect, and they don't realize that it is even relevant to protect. I'm even talking like social media things. Like, we just put things out on social media, say, hey, follow this, and then all of a sudden it's like, Cory told me to do this, I'm gonna sue him. And it's a possibility, but how deep down the rabbit hole do we get?
Let's keep it surface, but Omar, you're totally right in all of this. So let's look at it this way, okay? And I'm just going to list the types of documents that we set out for a health coach, and I don't want it to be overwhelming. And what I always say, and this is how I always coach clients to think about it. Think about the different relationships that you have. So you have relationships online, that's one thing. You have relationships in person, that's another thing. Great. When it comes to working with clients, the agreements you always need are the privacy policy, which are the rules around holding and keeping personal information, the waiver of liability to make sure that you don't get sued, a service agreement, so the relationship of you working with your clients, and then a disclaimer, which basically everything I've spoken about is contained within those 4 documents. All that makes sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
You and your clients, it's 4 agreements, totally taken care of. Social media, we always get our health coaches to get social media disclaimers, which basically says, okay, here are my qualifications. Anything I'm sharing is for educational purposes by virtue of you engaging in the, and when I'm going through the details of it, I understand how it could seem heavy or very detail oriented, but I'll try not to, but just to explain. So you're right. Social media, you're going out there and you're like, hey, this is how you quit sugar addiction. A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, someone's going, let's say someone follows that. One of those tips seems very innocuous and harmless to you, but something happens to someone who follows it, for sure, you can be responsible for that. So social media disclaimer is really important. We have an online course agreement that we sell to our clients, and that's like the rules around someone who takes the online course. And maybe these are legal issues you don't think about, but I've been through with clients. So as it relates to online courses, protection of the intellectual property, right? You're allowing someone to use the property. What are the rules around that? the different rules around maybe non-competition specifics to what you're talking about or what you're creating. It has to be specific in order for it to apply. But just so you know, one of the biggest issues that I have is course content creators create something and then someone goes in and basically copies all of it and then resells it on their own.
Yeah.
So there have to be rules around that for IP ownership, for, you know, maybe listing something for a non-compete, payment terms, cancellations, refunds, everything related to that. And then the biggest issue that we've seen recently has to do with online community agreements. It's very, very common for health coaches to have an online community. So, okay, here's my course and I'm a one-on-one teacher, but a one-on-one coach, but also I have a Facebook group for anyone who wants to join where we do webinars and we post information and we do this. You have to understand that at law, there's a term that's called duty of care. And it basically means anytime that you are facilitating something for another person or that you're responsible for it, if anyone suffers damages as a result of this thing that you create or facilitate or services that you provide, if they suffer damages, you're going to be the one who's liable. And we see a lot of issues in online communities with group forums of harassment, of breach of confidentiality provisions, discrimination, people who are not authorized to give advice and other people rely on it. So like the truth is, if we really were to get nuanced and detailed, I have a story with a client from every one of these things that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But the basic thing that you need to know is like, yeah, you know, if you're doing all these things, you should have a legal agreement for everything in place. Like that's really it.
Yeah, one of the things, like I said, is kind of curious, and again, maybe if we could dive into just topically, even where do you put, like, say that you had an online community or a group of that, like, where are you putting that? Like, say it's a Facebook group, do you put that on the top of the Facebook page and that's like sufficient, or do we have to have like an official document somewhere that states something? Because I've probably belonged to 100 Facebook groups and I don't think I've signed anything or acknowledged that something, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just curious how that looks.
The process is really simple. And even if it's for free, and, you know, even if it's for free, people should still be clicking, I agree to be bound to the expectations and rules of this online community. We call it an online community agreement. So before you allow anyone into the group, they have to click a box that says, I agree to be bound to the terms in this agreement. That agreement should be hyperlinked. And then it's like, no racism, no plagiarism, no harassment, you know, not medical advice provided by anyone who's not the facilitator. Well, I mean, if the facilitator is not a medical professional, then no medical advice whatsoever, you know, voluntary participation, all these sorts of things. Because just to run you through, again, not to sound like a broken record, but the life cycle of an issue is that someone's going to have a complaint, someone's going to allege that they've suffered damages or been prejudiced or been discriminated or whatever it is. The first step always is going to be looking at what the parties agreed to. So if the parties agreed to nothing, which many times that happens, I can tell you as the lawyer, I'm scrambling, I'm trying to piecemeal something, but it's so different, Omar, when hey, you know, before you entered the group, you agreed to these terms. Provision 7 says, you know, you will not use profanity or make other people feel uncomfortable. Provision 9 says confidentiality, you will not speak about any information about any person who's in the group to anyone else. If you do, you will be excluded from the group. And as much as the problems are like around making sure that everyone feels safe, and that if someone does something, you can show that you acted reasonably to prevent it, kicking people out of online groups is very difficult, and stopping to work with people can be really difficult because, and this is how it always happens, someone's acting in a really strange way. Usually there's some imbalance going on in that person's life, whether it's mental health or whatever it is. And like, that's some of the biggest risks I see to my clients is if something like that comes up. Now, if you want to objectively be able to expel someone from the community and be able to do it without risk of them saying, oh, I'm going to talk bad about you, like non-disparagement. I'm going to talk bad about you, or you're discriminating against me because of ABC. When you have a signed agreement, and you're like, hey, provision 7 says, do not break this rule. Here is a screenshot of you breaking this rule. it's done. You're out. If you come after us, we reserve the right to counterclaim plus damages. Like, that's how you extinguish problems. Does that help?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I think that's fascinating because again, that's one of the core components to many people who are trying to like launch online. Community is such an important part of getting results. So a lot of the groups, that's really what the intention of. And so I know tons of health coaches who I deal with on a regular basis who are involved in these community settings. So yeah, that's super helpful. So I appreciate you sharing that. One of the questions that I wanted to ask is, are there some legal issues that health coaches just kind of steer clear of? Because these are things that maybe are too lofty. I hear a lot of coaches, they just start out and they're like, I want to copyright this. I want to trademark this. I personally think it's kind of a little further down the line. Maybe I don't have something similar to them product wise or, idea wise, but that process is a timely, or I should say time consuming process. Is that something that people should be out the gate worried about, or is it something, because I just don't want them to get in the way of starting. I think health coaches kind of have a tendency to do that, including myself. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I need this before I start this. And those are like kind of bigger legal issues, unless I'm mistaken.
No, you're on point, and I can walk you through when and what it looks like. Firstly, there's a distinction between copyright and trademark. So copyright is the protection of an artistic work, which usually in this context means something that you write, some written work that you create. So you've created a manual, you've created a guide, you've created a program, you've created something. The content of that would be registered for copyright. What it does, and copyright, there's not really a validation process. So it's not like they're going to check to make sure that you're really the one who wrote that, but it's more putting the USPTO on notice to say, hey, this is my manual. On this date at this time, I registered it for copyright. They give you a copyright certificate number. You have the certificate number. And then if someone's copying it, you could say, hey, this was the date that I filed. This was the content. What you're using, you've copied my materials, and there you go. So the time that you would register for copyright, and copyright is not nearly as lengthy or expensive as trademark. Okay. So copyright is something, it protects your intellectual property of an artistic work. In this context, usually something written. A trademark is the protection of a word or a series of words or a logo with words that gives you exclusive use over that particular word or series of words or logo with words, and enforceable rights, which means once I register this, I'm the only one who's allowed to use this term or this logo or this sentence in relation to the goods and services that I'm offering. So if I'm a health coach and I come up with kite surfing, the kite surfing health coach as an example, and I use kite surfing, whatever, okay, I register that for trademark. What that means is that A, I have the security to know that I can always use the name. B, if someone else goes out and tries to do, the kite health coach, I would be able to stop them from doing that because it would mislead the public, assuming that the goods and services are the same. But also what it does is it prevents someone else from being able to register it and then use those rights around me. So copyright, trademark, we're good on the distinction?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, cool. Now the question of when to trademark comes up, and I always say it's sort of like a marriage / tattoo test. Like if you know that it's something that you're really, really committed to for the long term, and that you always are going to be, it's always going to be part of you, and you see this as part of building your business for the long term, then it makes sense to trademark. You're right. A lot of people right out of the gate will say, oh, I have a great name, but I don't want to put it out there until I trademark. And I'm like, sure, that's legitimate. But firstly, you should see if it's registerable. Like you should see if someone else has registered it, because most people haven't done a search or haven't gotten a legal opinion on whether they can register something. But it's really important to do it. And I would say, like, if you're an existing business and you're a going concern and you're in operations and you have that word or that name or that slogan or that logo, and you want to make sure that you're always going to be able to use it, then that's when it makes sense to register for a trademark. If you're in the beginning phases and you've got a couple of different options of what you're looking for, then probably that's not the right time. But Omar, I have been through a couple of situations with clients who have existing businesses, never registered a trademark. Out of nowhere, they get a cease and desist letter. Another business in another part of the country came and registered the exact mark that they were using before they did. And now they get a cease and desist. Hey, you have 30 days to change your website, change your materials, change your marketing, change all of these things. And it really sucks when that happens.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah, that's got to be brutal. So, yeah, I mean, and I can tell from this conversation that you really enjoy making the legal aspect of like this heart-driven business fun. Why was it so important for you to connect the fun aspect and to this, and why do you think it's so important that your clients appreciate that angle?
Thank you for acknowledging the role of fun in this conversation, and in the work that I do. Think that it's very nice of you. Life is short. Life is short, and law is important, and anything worth doing should be fun. And what I learned very early on is that if I had a fun and positive attitude about the work I was doing, that would be contagious to my clients, who would then have fun working with us and be excited in doing it. And really, when I mean it, when I say it, it's so important to be legally secure. And I've had so many amazing clients just go through real significant problems that jeopardize their assets and their business that were so easily preventable, that for me, it's like, cool. It's sort of like giving medicine to a baby and like smiling and making them think that it's candy instead of medicine. Like, I'm just doing my dance, I'm drinking my tea, I'm doing everything I can to, I don't want to say distract my clients from the mundaneness and the banality of legal documents, but I want them to enjoy the process, and I want them to get into it, because this is the foundation for their business to succeed in the long term. And also, it's like, all wonderful things are born out of contrast. And the first accountant that I ever worked with, it was like, I never wanted to call him. I was always dreading speaking to him. It was just, everything was boring and heavy and complicated. And I was just like, man, I'm going to do everything to be the lawyer that people want to talk to, that they get excited and jazzed to speak with. And, we can talk about life for a bit before we talk about work. And I want to make it easy and fun for them. So it's the truth is that I just love having fun. I'm still a kid. So I feel like a kid, and I always want to feel like a kid. And B, it's just something that's so important that you have to find a way to get your clients to be involved, even if it's to a minimal degree. Like, they have to be involved and engaged in order to get the work done. But once they're set up legally, then they're on their way. And if they have any problems, they just send me an email, and then their problems become my problems.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I definitely think after this podcast, you'll definitely display to the world that this was fun. Like I said, I only put us in for 30 or 40 minutes, and I feel like we could have gone on. I enjoyed this conversation tremendously. I could have gone on for another hour, because it is an interesting topic after you kind of see how it relates to the day in and day out operations of health coaching in general. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you for the delivery too. It's great.
Thanks, Omar. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's been cool to, in the brief time we've had a chance to chat, and me checking out your stuff. I love what you're up to. I'm a big fan, and keep being you, and thank you for this awesome opportunity.
No, I appreciate it. Likewise. And I definitely want to give everyone an opportunity to find out where they can find all this information. So if you could give us your website, your social media handle, so that we could take advantage of some of the products that you do offer and get to know you and your business a little better, and, keep up with all these awards that you guys are collecting over there. So yeah, I would love for you to share that with the audience as well.
Yeah, perfect. So the website is Conscious Counsel, consciouscounsel.ca. All of our social media handles are at Conscious Counsel. And in the show notes, we'll have a link so that people can just directly access it. And I will make an effort to remember the names of the different awards that we've received, which is cool. But But yeah, just hit us up. And we also, for anyone who's listening to this episode, if you want a free consult with one of our lawyers, we always do 15-minute free consults. I understand that not everyone has money to pay to understand what legal issues may exist, or they need some support. So yeah, we're a heart-driven business, excited to support health coaches, and really grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, the pleasure having you on, brother. Thank you for all the information, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much, Omar. I appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.